I'm not doing anything but playing Subnautica all day tomorrow. It's going to be a great day.
What's up with this water fetish? Welcome to the Effin' Movie Podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Camacho. Next to me is Nathan Long. The other one is Mason Rector. And we also got Price Bell here. Today we're talking about Christopher Nolan masterpiece Inception!
Masterpiece is debatable.
Nope. And it's a movie and a movie and a movie and a movie.
And it's at least 4 of them.
It's at least 4, maybe 5.
A few.
Nathan, you watched this movie. Why don't you tell us what this movie's about?
He watched it in passing.
Do you want us to?
Nathan, do you want to defer?
This movie is about the concept of being able to go into other people's dreams to either extract information or, in a very rare case that is arguably by the characters not even possible, to conceive an idea into somebody else's mind. Or Inception, as they put it in the movie.
Roll credits.
So this movie begins with it was like a pretty much a failed attempt at extracting information out of one person, then rolls over into the actual main story, which is them trying to put the thought into the soon-to-be heir of this huge
electric
corporate
company.
this huge corporate empire, that what he should do is actually break the company up.
Right.
For the benefit of the failed attempts prior to...
Yeah.
Which is kind of like the villain, but also
he's like
the
villain, but also kind of protagonist. What's the actor's name? I'm totally blanking.
The guy's name's like,
Watanabe
I thought his name's like Set or something. I thought.
Yeah, Set. He's a great Asian actor. I can never remember his name, but so he's kind of the main villain, but he's also the one hiring the crew, and he's like, I'm going to be a part of this whole crew with it. I'll sum it up from here and just kind of wrap it on this one. So anyway, they go into what's-his-face's dreams. Cillian Murphy, whatever, I forget his name.
Scarecrow.
Yeah, so they go into his dreams, and then they have to keep diving more and more into multiple dreams, and this movie's been out for like 10 years now, guys. You probably have watched this movie.
Most people have seen this.
Most people have watched this, and the idea is that it's just dream and dream and dream.
It's been memed into oblivion.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that, like, if you were talking about, I remember when Step Brothers, you're like, I've heard about it a million times. Like, Inception has been beaten into the ground.
Yeah. Because it was before its time.
Oh, it's 100%
100%.
before its time. Yeah,
I'm not knocking it either.
This is extremely, even to date, it's like innovation still stands strong, like in the visuals kind of go into it. But let's just get into the meat of the movie. So you kind of get the plot. Leo is the main character. Background with him really quickly is that Marion Cotillard, his wife, Maud, does that sound right? Maul. Yeah. So Maul, she'd passed away because he originally implanted Inception into her brain, and so she's kind of like haunting his subconscious. He comes through the dreams as this like villain, and like as like one of the other main protagonists in the movie. And I kind of want to just leap in there. She's awesome as a like main, like kind of like a main villain.
I don't like her to this day because of that movie.
Yeah.
Like it's that good of a
Right.
part for her. Yeah, yeah.
But like even as I rewatched this one again, and I was watching it, and like I've seen this movie at least a handful of times at this point, and seeing her come in and just kind of like every time she's even talking or something like that, it's Marion Cotillard. Like it's this very delicate, I believe, French woman.
Yeah, she's French.
Yeah, but she is so threatening in this movie. Like, and with the cast with like Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Hardy, and all these other people, she stands out so much. Like, I have so much praises for her in this one. Every time she comes in, you're just like, oh, delicate French woman. Oh, she's gonna mess everything up. Like,
oh yeah. Well, they established that pretty early on, and they build up the idea of her being just extremely dangerous constantly.
Yeah, she's basically the dynamite in this whole scheme because like if she shows up, the whole dream's probably gonna go to shit.
Yeah,
and she shows up a lot because Leonardo DiCaprio cannot control his mental. I don't know.
His subconscious from bleeding through.
Subconscious. He's racked with guilt. And that guilt is manifest in her.
See, I don't think it's so much as her. I don't think she's the menacing force. I think it's more the fact of how unstable Leonardo DiCaprio is because they established early on that like everybody's mind needs to be on one objective, needs to be like stable throughout the whole process, and like if anything comes in and messes it up, everything's going to go
a formula
downhill. And like DiCaprio, like, I mean, did that 50 years with her and stuff, and then came back from, like, the abyss, and, like, his head is just in a
I mean, mentally, he's,
spot.
like, what, like 60, 70 or something like that, 80, you know, he's closer to like probably 100 than anything after the amount of time that he's had in subconscious living.
He is scrambled compared to everyone else's professional tone in this movie.
And then he went through limbo again at the end of the movie, so like, yeah, I mean, how much time has actually mentally passed for Leo? Like, yeah, his mind should technically be jello, like multiple times over through.
Going back and rewatching this, because I haven't watched this for a good 6 or 7 years, the most poignant scene, the best scene to me was actually the flashback of showing them 50 years in the future. When like he stays there with her and they're like holding hands, and it like shows them that like they really lived a whole life together, and were doing stuff together, and that like it just got taken away from them because they came back and it just messed them up so bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it kind of gets you more into like, because the whole time you're like, DiCaprio, like, he's really messing this up for everybody. He's a big jerk. He's a big doo-doo head. And then like you realize like, dude lived a whole life with this person, then came back to like a 30-year-old body,
right?
And like his head was somewhere else. Yeah, the fact that he's able to even walk around is amazing.
I hate to say that it's like that he's kind of messing things up because it's not his intention. Obviously, at the end of the day, like he's like, I will do anything I have to get back to my kids because they left behind kids whenever they went away, and Maul just essentially set him up that she was like, listen, I believe the real world that we're in now is a dream, and I'm gonna kill myself to make you see that.
So I could go back.
Right, so that we could go back in the dream, but essentially in real world setup, like she's like, listen,
she
if you
was
don't
messed
come in
up
with me,
too, but he had slightly more realistic thoughts than her because like he knew that the real world where they were in that hotel scene, that was real life. That was not some kind of stage of
that
sleep.
was something that was actually lived out.
Yeah, and she didn't know that. Like she kind of did, but I guess she just didn't want to believe it.
So. Because again, she had like had the Inception happen to her, where he had put a thought in her head that said
she was like the first one.
Yeah, she was the first one to be like truly Inception, at least.
And she very elaborately set it up to where she ruined his world to try and make it so unlivable that he would have no other option other than to go with her.
Yeah. Right.
She made it to where she had sent a letter to the police or something that she feared for her life, so that the kids would be taken away from him. She had multiple psychiatric evaluations done to prove that she was completely sane, so it couldn't be claimed that she was crazy as to why she jumped. She painted him to be an absolute villain in the world to try and force his hand to join her in what she thought was the next level of the dream.
Right. Next level psychotic, right?
Yeah.
So it makes it all kind of comes around.
So I think my only problem with that part of the background for this movie is that they make it seem like he's like an international criminal because of that. Now later you kind of get the idea that it's like, oh, it's because he's this huge like dream hopping like industrial person. That's probably why he's a bigger target on comfort. Yeah. But, like, the movie makes a big push to say, like, oh, Maul messed up my life. Like, I can't go back to the whole United States because of this. And it's like, maybe in your state, but, I mean, like, I don't know, man. People murder people all the time and tend to still stay in the country, okay? But, the movie does a lot of big focus to say, like, you couldn't even return to this one. If France caught you, they might extradite you back. That's something, like, his dad says on that one. And I'm like, for Maul, I think it's a bit much. Like, listen, there's plenty of murderers who aren't like that high profile.
Yeah, and it's not that. Like, that's basically the barrier to him, I guess, ever getting back to the States. And everything that he, I assume, did subsequently to make a living is why he's
a high-profile target.
Yeah.
Right.
So, this movie, like, kind of going into a couple qualms. So, this movie is pure fantasy, okay? So you're supposed to kind of make it up as you go. They're supposed to kind of set a foundation for what you know, what you're supposed to know, and what you're supposed to figure out throughout. I feel like this movie kind of does a mediocre job of like setting the rules early on, and then as the story goes on, just sort of implementing like loophole rules. Like for instance, early on, Ellen Page, she gets kind of attacked in that first dream that she creates, you know, because
by the subconscious.
Maul comes up, kills her, she pops up alive, right? You know, later on, Leonardo DiCaprio, after they were on the plane and they, you know, that whole dream went to shit, go figure, they all do. Whenever everything went awry, you know, they were like, oh, let's just shoot him. Like, he'll come back, we can all just do this again. And then all of a sudden, Leonardo DiCaprio was like, no.
There's a new rule now.
New rule, let me tell you, we're all going to die. Yeah. The stakes have never been higher.
Well, yeah, and that's just them trying to raise the stakes.
It is.
Like, no,
right.
If you die in the game, you die in real life.
Yes, this is Stay Alive. Yeah, this is just Stay Alive, the movie. So, but I don't know. That plus there was some other parts too, like, I'm glad you guys touched on Leonardo DiCaprio's part because I was actually going to sit there and say he is a total dickhead for dragging 7 not innocent people, but like 6 innocent people into this for the
5
sake
innocent
of his
people
2
and
children.
then Ellen Page. Yeah.
2 children.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't sign up for it, which I think is the most dickish thing. It's like
Yes,
they knew what they were signing up for, but they didn't know they were signing up
For
for
the
like,
stakes that they signed up for.
So,
Right.
yes, that's
Like,
different.
On
If you're
paper,
signing
this
up
is
for
so unlikely to succeed, and he's
Yeah.
just like, listen, it's by this paper-thin margin, but I can't let them know that because they wouldn't agree.
If they were maybe going to get arrested, if they were going to maybe go to prison for a couple of years,
Right.
that's different. If they were going to die, they would not have signed up for
But
it.
the brain turning to absolute mush in a dream world while dying in limbo, yeah, that's a whole separate concept with it.
So I didn't like that aspect. There was really only a couple qualms that I had. I think, look at that awful handwriting.
Oh, God. He hand wrote it and then took a picture of it.
No, that was on Samsung Notes.
Oh, okay.
Anyways,
Okay.
So yeah, that plus like just the little tiny things that would get them caught. For instance, the area rug at one point gets brought up.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Well,
little
so
simple things.
in that instance, in that like first dream situation, they were trying to reconstruct that guy's house to like I
Exactly.
guess, put him
Yes.
at ease or
To a
something,
T.
which to me is strange because one of the things he tells the architect girl early on is that she should not pull from memories.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not a good idea. But
loopholes.
in order to have constructed this place to be his house to then also get caught because the one detail of the rug was off, they would have had to
pull
been
exactly.
in there and would have had to, from memory, pull something together that was real.
See, but like that part bothers me a lot less as I'm rewatching it because it's like that's Hobbs. I remembered his name now. Finally, Leonardo DiCaprio's character. Like that's pretty much his whole shtick is that he's like, all right, firstly, this is all such a strange like pseudoscience to begin with. So he's like, I'm making up the rules for all this because he's like the innovative person for the
someone's got to do it.
It's like a family thing because I think he even said himself like his dad, like Michael Caine's character, was technically the one who pioneered that.
Yeah.
But so he's like, I know the rules. But then Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character even says to Ellen Page's at one point, he's like, so you notice how much time Hobbs spends telling you to do doing what he said not to do.
Yeah.
Like that's constantly his thing. He's just like, all right, well here's the rules. Here's how this is all, and then you can tell. On a rewatch, to me, it felt like he was like, here are the rules of this world. And, like, my headcanon is he's like, oh, this is what Michael Caine taught me. And he's like, now I'm going to go ahead and break every one of those rules so I can use that to do it to, like, make money and do profit and do all of that. So for me, that kind of lines up a little bit more on that one because it's just, like, even other characters are like, yeah, that's kind of a shtick. Like,
and maybe that was just him telling Ellen Page early on, listen, don't pull from memory.
Right.
Maybe you're a beginner. Don't do it because of this. You know, like, don't...
And for him especially, because he pulled, like, all those memory world, like... For him and his whole experience with Maul, he was like, yeah, we made this world that was real lit. Like, this was the real world stuff that we have. We remade it in a dream. So whenever we went back to the real world, who was to say that, oh, we're not still in a dream? This was all here still. So I think all of his lessons tend to come from, Michael Caine's passed down mentally. And then, like, his experience with Maul. So he's just like, don't do that. Because he's like, when I did that and I was married, that kind of messed some stuff up.
Yeah.
So, like, I get him for it, but at the same time, he has to break all these rules that he made again just to kind of make it through the whole thing.
Yeah.
Price, any qualms?
Man, it just gives me... This for personal reasons, this movie brings up, like, bad memories because for some reason, like, when I first saw this movie in 2010, I was like, man, I think I'm so smart because I really like this movie. And I kind of understand it. I'm going to say it's my favorite movie. I'm going to use that obnoxious 528492 for like passwords and stuff like that because I think I'm so smart. So I was watching this. I was like, I was insufferable. God, the fact, like I told people this is my favorite movie.
The fact that you were tooting your own horn back in the day and now realizing that you were tooting your horn back in the day.
Oh, yeah. It was awful.
Oh, man.
I get that. I
guess.
guess.
When I was watching, I was like, I was a terrible little 17-year-old. Just terrible.
Well,
man, that's interesting. You were 17 for that. Yeah, you must have been terrible. What happened?
I know. Why, got even worse or got even better?
Let the fans decide. So, yeah, I mean, you guys can go into the qualms. I truthfully don't have many. This is one of those movies for me that I think is... There's not many parts that I don't enjoy out of this. Even on rewatches, I try to sit here and think, what are the parts that I find really boring and interesting? Honestly, it's the opposite for me. I have these moments where I'm like, oh, sweet, this part's coming up. Or Also, something I want to plug very big on, that the music on this movie, Zimmer brings it. Whenever they're in Mombasa and they get to Tom Hardy's character, like even just like the upbeat like running scene when he's flying through that whole city, like that part's awesome. But let's talk about the ensemble, because this is a big cast movie. Like,
the whole time I was watching, this is topical now, but there's that Rick and Morty episode where there's that meme going around now where it's the son of a bitch, I'm in.
Oh, yeah.
Because they do the whole episode parodying heist movies. And then watching this, I was like, this is a heist movie.
It's a heist movie.
This is a heist movie. And this is... I was
so
like...
before we get into it, here's the thing. If you have seen any other podcasts of ours, you will have known that Dylan loves Tom Hardy. Dylan loves Leonardo DiCaprio. Dylan absolutely loves Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
I actually really do love Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
These are 3 of the 5 top stars in this movie.
Here's some other spoilers for you. I really like Ellen Page.
You like Ellen Page enough.
She doesn't do anything. She plays herself in every role.
That's fine. Like, I like
every
her.
role.
She's charming enough. It's okay.
This was 2 years after Juno.
She's so boring.
This is 2 years after Juno. She's good enough. I would say that of all this roster, she's honestly one of the weaker characters, like admittedly to me, but...
Because she's the audience role.
Yeah.
They're explaining stuff to her all the time.
Right, she's exposition bot. Right,
Yeah.
so she's stuck in that role that's gonna not necessarily be the most fun.
Yep.
But even as I'm like Cillian Murphy, I really like. I mean, here's the thing, and I know Lynn is, and to nobody's surprise, my favorite director. So,
Who?
You have Christopher Nolan.
Really? Did you like Dunkirk?
I like Dunkirk.
Oh, you're the
Oh, wow, I must be so stupid.
I enjoy Dunkirk.
That's my one movie I've ever walked out on. I walked out.
We're not talking about Dunkirk. We're talking about Nolan. All right, listen.
Hated it.
That was a new movie.
I'd probably give
That
it.
makes sense.
I'd probably give it like a half.
It's too good for him.
I hate
Just a
it.
half.
Anyway,
That
so
movie.
we're not talking about Dunkirk. Anyway, so Nolan being my favorite director, like 3 of my like favorite actors, plus other actors that I'll enjoy, because Nolan has like a rotating list of like
The Butler.
actors. Yeah, Michael Caine. I love Michael Caine. Pretty much all of these actors coming through Hall of here. I swear, like Satoshi, whatever the Asian actor's name is, also like he's great.
What else has he been in?
He's been in Godzilla.
That's one movie.
Don't worry about Godzilla. You don't need to watch that. Moving on.
That's not true. Godzilla's really fun
I
too.
didn't see
But anyway, so the whole cast is super, super great. But more importantly, it's all of my favorite characters. Like,
It really is.
This movie is designed for me to want to like it. Like,
Whenever I watched it on Sunday, I was like, God bless. Dylan is having to change his pants right now.
woo, every time Tom Hardy. So
Jesus.
I love the small interactions with Joseph Gordon-Levitt in this. Like, you gotta all right, tell me I'm wrong that the interactions between the ensemble cast is really fun.
Joseph
though,
Gordon-Levitt
too.
was the best character in this movie. And he had this much dialogue in the movie.
I love Joseph Gordon-Levitt because he's extremely charming, but for the
Super
same
charming.
But for the same reason I like Tom Hardy, I like Tom Hardy as his like the counterweight to like Joseph Gordon-Levitt's
I
character.
retract my comment. He's not the best character in this movie, but I loved his character in this movie.
Eames in this film,
Yeah.
Tom Hardy's character is delightful. Like even whenever it's just their little bicker, him and Joseph Gordon-Levitt's bickering is some of my favorite stuff in the movie because it's just like, oh yeah, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, yeah, Inception's not possible, and then Leo's like, ooh. And then later, like he's talking with Eames, he's like, yeah, so I had to convince him, Inception's possible, and then Tom Hardy's character, yeah, totally possible. And he's like, oh yeah, JGL said that it couldn't be done. He's like, oh, that's stiff. Yeah, you wouldn't know that stuff. So
Yeah, it's just it's a never ending like.
don't
they've
be
known
afraid
each
to
other
think a
for
little bigger,
years.
darling.
Yeah.
Big rocket launcher. Oh
Oh, I
gosh,
hated that part.
love that scene.
That was such a like, hey, you're supposed to laugh now. You're gonna laugh now.
And I laugh, and I just gush at it now. I'm like,
That part made me think like. Again, in a dream world, you should just be able to
Yeah.
find literally anything. They should be able to get out of every situation.
why
by
aren't they
pulling
flying a
rocket
Gundam out of
launcher.
here now? Right.
Yes.
Why did they use the grenade launcher earlier and kill everybody rather than use a little AK-47?
Listen,
to
there's
people?
plenty of questions to ask, and
There's a
dream
lot
world
of
stuff.
questions.
This
There's a lot
is
of questions
for
that
a movie based on
necessarily-
pseudoscience. Yeah, this is gonna be one of those ones where it's like, well, why didn't they just do like you could say that for a lot of this
Oh,
film,
yeah.
admittedly. Like I would say that's its biggest flaw.
And I feel like the biggest explanation for a lot of that is like the architect built the world.
well, the architect didn't put it in there, so
Yeah.
They didn't put screaming Godzilla in here to distract everybody.
And the architect is also human, which is why they make some of those mistakes. The rug, Ellen Page getting shot by Maul, which that was more his fault.
Unlike the Matrix, where the architect is a machine.
Yes.
That's something we'll never watch.
Stay tuned. Nathan will pick the Matrix.
What you're talking about?
No,
it's coming.
As long as it's just the first one.
We've all seen it.
Yeah.
I don't have any other qualms though. I mean, I could talk about good stuff or fat, thick, or perfect.
Just talk.
Thin.
Does it have to be a topic? You could just speak into the void.
No, I mean, if I keep talking, this movie is full of all of my funny stuff with it. So I'm trying to be contained with it, honestly. Yeah. But do we want to get into Fat Fit, Perfectly Fit, or Nathan, do you have some stuff you want to chime in on before we go?
What do you all think about that final series of collapsing moments of them like waking up from every level of the dream? Because that's something that I remember the first time and this time felt weak to me.
Holy is what I would say. It's very holy.
The only
HOLEY. Just so we're clear.
The only layer that bothers me is the elevator one. Like everything else I get, because I'm like, if I felt like I was falling through a building, I would feel that. But I'm like, if there's no gravity, and it pushes an elevator and that explodes, and do they hit the top? I'm like, that's a weird thing. I don't know. That's like the only one I'm like, I don't buy I'd wake up from that.
Seems like that should kill him.
Well, the explosion might, but the explosion's like right underneath it, and they're just kind of propelled. So either way, the logistics of the elevator one I have issues with, but I suspend enough of that in this film because we're in a dream is the general.
So
agreed.
Why did they need to like
sync it up right?
Feel like they were falling though.
Because it's like an instinct inside the inner ear is the thing that's like it's a trigger that's supposed to send you from unconscious to conscious.
Okay, so they could do that, but getting shot didn't work.
Well, yes, because shot was essentially like they're gonna feel the pain receptors, and it's a different thing. Like if you feel that in your body, they say the inner ear thing is the thing that connects you to like that wake up reflex, because that's like a very distinct feeling.
They have that cute thing with Tom Hardy and JGL where like he's like leaning back like this. And then he tries like kicking him up, and like he's like whoa like that, and he's like that's the
reflex. Yeah,
it's called the kick.
Yeah, the kick. So essentially they say that's the only thing that's going to be. That's the only appropriate way to wake them up in this, because they're like, you could be stabbed, but you're like your body's perpetually in a coma in this time period. So even if your body's receiving
DiCaprio in that series of collapsing moments, it just cuts to him waking up on the airplane.
Yes. It doesn't really show him having any of the kick. Yeah.
Prior to everyone else comes back.
Right.
So I feel like this movie then is trying to leave the door open to did he ever really wake up?
Yeah.
That's the whole ending.
The whole ending is meant to be the ambiguous, is he actually still in the dream, or did he actually wake up? Because whenever the spinner's still spinning, it never shows a topple, which that's the point it's supposed to be.
Let's be real. This movie did it the best. Of any up in the air, I have no flipping clue what's gonna, like...
Did this movie have ending A or ending B?
Yeah, it's one of the two.
Yeah, as an ambiguous ending
in between. He is dead, brain mush, dead in purgatory, or he is seeing his kids for the first time in years or whatever. I think this movie did a great job with that ending.
Yep.
And I actually kind of like the fact that he was stuck behind, and like they just gave him the airplane scene where they all just kind of nodded at him, and then he was walking through the airport and they all just kind of smiled. I think that was as good as it was going to get with an ending like this.
Yeah.
Just because I think they were going to have to explain a ton more to make you believe that he was actually alive, or they were going to really piss you off by him staying there with Maul.
Right. This movie having a decisive ending actually is worse for it.
Yeah, I don't know which way you could go.
Yeah.
If we're doing the unthinkable here and like actually giving compliments to Dylan's movie, I'll go along with it.
Hats off.
I really liked how in the opening you see the old Asian guy and he's super old, like decrepit, just old. And then like 2 seconds later, like in the same house, same thing or whatever, like you see them, that's when they're trying to break in, prove that they're worth the time and stuff. And you're like, that old man. Yeah. What happened there?
What happened to old man Asian?
And then it, like near the end of the movie, like it just did a very brief glimpse of that scene, because this is why we put it here. This is why we're not gonna beat you over the head with it. We're just gonna this is it. We're gonna fast forward through this time and show you how that scene ended. I really like that. I like that tie into the beginning of the movie.
Right.
I like that a lot.
This is probably I have to think really hard on this, but I'm going to make the statement before I tell myself I'm wrong later. This is probably my favorite non-linear storytelling. In a way that, like...
The Witcher?
No. So, I do love The Witcher, but The Witcher you need to watch a whole lot of and understand on that one. But with Inception, this is just... Obviously, it's a non-linear storytelling in a way that it's like...
So?
They're... Okay, so the middle part of the movie when they're going through the dreams, yes and no. Because essentially the movie's going in this direction towards the end. The beginning of the film cuts back and forth, like you said. It shows, like, a little bit of the ending and a little bit of this. And then it kind of goes linear for a while, and then it splits into like 3 different ones, but it's going between all 3 of these. So it's at this point 3 to 4 different movies that they're just like chapter A, chapter B, chapter C, chapter D, da 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 da. And that way, it's not necessarily linear in that it's this. It's like a bunch of tied together plots that wrap at a point, which goes to 2 different directions. So in that way, I think that this is. It's not strictly like a Quentin Tarantino non-linear film where it's like. Here's the middle. Here's more of the middle. Here's the beginning. Here's the end. Here's the beginning again. Like
here's another volume for no reason.
Right. Like in.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. This movie does all go this direction, like from start to finish, with a couple jumps here and there. But overall, I don't know. Would you describe it as non-linear, or would you describe it as linear?
I think it's all following. Like non-linear to me is that the timeline is kind of out of order.
Yeah.
And the only timeline out of order in this movie is a little bit of the ending is at the beginning. But otherwise, it follows.
I guess I would follow
a straight
that.
line.
Yeah,
because like if you cut off that beginning, that very very beginning scene, like it's completely linear the rest of the time.
But you have to admit this is so. Yeah, I guess I would agree with that. This probably isn't the right movie to say non-linear. It does it a little bit, but it is very much kind of in its own category, having movies within movies to sit here and tell the story and bouncing between that.
Like, that's why it's been memed to death.
Right,
it's like it's a dream in a dream.
Everything's a dream in a dream in a dream. Right, like all memes aside, though, like this, I don't think this would have gotten even memed if it wasn't worth the memeing. So, it is.
I'm not attacking for it. I think I really like this movie.
This movie came in and did so much for its time. Like it was so.
I think the last thing that I would want to even touch on is like speaking about these different worlds and these different like chapters, if you want to call it, or movies within movies. All of them were spectacular.
Yes.
So aside from like the rain, the coolest thing about the rain scene was all the car chasing and then the guns and all that stuff. Pretty cool. Then it goes into that hotel, that tunnel. I know you guys have seen that, like how it's made, where it's like
it's like a rotating thing.
Awesome.
I love that it's a practical set and it's not CG too.
Yeah.
Like that's
they
my
were actually
favorite part.
tumbling around as if it was like a carnival ride.
Yeah.
And then that snow fort, that place was so freaking cool.
Yeah.
Also the underground or whatever it was called, the purgatory type.
Oh yeah.
The underneath. I don't know what they said.
Essentially, it's the third dream.
I think that will look really dated though. I thought kind of looked dated.
The crumbling buildings have a little bit outdated on that, but 10 years later.
I totally agree with all of it. It was meant to look crippled and, just awful. The shores washing all the buildings away.
That ever being a movie where the CG suffers as years go on is kind of helps in its favor because you're like, this is supposed to, in a way, because this is
never gonna knock
it's supposed to be a degraded thing. Like, so seeing it 10 years later and looking back on it, I'm like, oh, I get it. Like, that's kind of the theme of it.
I don't know. To me, it kind of looks like, again, when we get in, like, more of the future, it's just going to look like bad CG compared to, like, the hotel where, like, that scene will be standout for a very long time.
For the top clips
because it's so good. And then that crumbling like CG, like how we look at like old movies that try to use CG, like some of the bad CG from the Star Wars movies or something like that.
Yeah, I do think that, like, even though you can say conceptually, like, it fits the theme, it just doesn't look that good.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's in a movie that otherwise looks really, really good.
Oh, yeah.
It sticks out.
Yeah. But also, I have to give it a slight 10 years later, CG's come a long way, and most every other thing in this movie is practical. So, I'm like, if there's going to have any flaws, sure, the CG is CG is going to be a flaw for any movie that does it for any point in the future. So, that's like the timeless gripe on that one. So, it doesn't do enough to like take me out of the movie and be like, oh, no. That CG is atrocious.
Oh, I definitely.
This isn't. What's the Sega Genesis graphics doing in my Nolan flick?
I would never knock this.
Why did they get the guy from Lawnmower Man to make this?
Yeah, exactly. Let's put some apes with some VR headsets in.
Director's edition, Nathan. God, I'm not talking about that right now.
I watched the director's cut of Midsummer that he made me watch the other day. It was awful.
So
I was so mad.
Do we want to get into the shape of this movie?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So, fat, fit, perfectly thick. Dang it, I did it again! And this one is just a joke. In this segment of the show, we sit here and take, okay, movie fat, does it run too long? Is there extra scenes? Do you cut stuff out? Is it thin? Opposite problem. No, man, there's not enough on the plate. I wish there was more there. Perfectly fit, runtime matches exactly what you want out of it, doesn't overstay its welcome.
No, I want to go first.
Let me go first.
No, I'm going first because I want to say it's fit.
Mason raised his hand first.
Oh, come on. I was giving you a...
This movie is 100% perfectly fit.
No, come on.
Because...
I want to be the first one to say it.
This movie, I don't know how long it is.
2 hours and 31 minutes.
Doesn't feel it.
Boy.
Does
That's
not
not
feel
true.
it.
out that
That's not true.
Does not feel it. This movie could be
a little over 2.
It could be 4 hours long. It would not feel it. And I don't know why. I think... Here, you look it up.
No,
it doesn't. It's okay.
Put your phone away,
Put
Mason.
your phone away.
You're always getting us in trouble for your phone. Get your phone out of here. Look it up off air.
Sorry, Jill.
It's not important.
So, so this movie, what I do like, what it does is it sort of tells you this story like we were talking about earlier. Leonardo DiCaprio tells Ellen Page the things that we need to hear, and that really just resolves everything. You sort of learn as you go. I think that's great. I will admit, the first time I watched this movie, Price, I'm sorry, I was not feeling smart and super, competent.
I told you I hate myself for that.
I felt confused so badly. I watched this movie probably 3 times in the course of maybe a year and a half to try
taking notes with this Samsung or whatever.
Drawing out the whole dreams.
I had a BlackBerry, so probably not.
You had a BlackBerry?
I had one for like 10 years.
I believe that.
I believe it.
I believe that.
Anyways,
that surprises no one.
He's a
so I
minimalist.
finally would start to like kind of chisel away at this just block of cement that was supposed to be this elegant masterpiece, and I'm so glad that I finally got it. I've probably seen this movie about 5 or 6 times since the very beginning. So I think it's perfectly fit. I would not have watched this movie over and over with the complex storyline that it has if I did not think that it was pretty darn good.
Nathan?
Yeah, I'd say it's fit.
No.
It is...
It's going to be 4.
It's not really anything in particular that I think needs to be cut. Every scene is worth having. I don't know if I feel like it's a movie that... I've only ever watched it twice. I watched it shortly after it came out on DVD almost 10 years ago.
Yep, 2010.
Yeah.
Yep.
So... and then just today.
You're a more intelligent man than I am, though, Nathan.
Yeah.
I don't know. It didn't seem like it was overly complex. There's some points that
10 years ago, I was drinking more. So.
There's some points that I think are where the pseudoscience is maybe a little bit weak, but you can forgive it for the fact that what it's wanting to do is be a cinematically engaging and interesting story, and I think they can fudge the pseudoscience if they want. So yeah, I'd say there's nothing in there that needs to be removed at any point.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, kind of picking off that, this is a movie that has essentially like 3 to 4 small films built into it as serving the plot.
Very small film.
So
yeah.
for all the scenes run times, I feel like are perfect. Like, it's the total opposite of Tarantino, where you feel like that his scenes go on for about 2-3 seconds, a little bit longer than they should.
70%.
Yeah, Blade Runner was the worst one about that. The first one.
Blade Runner does.
First just don't.
Yeah, the first one, yeah. But anyway, so all that being said, this movie not only is it fit, it's perfectly fit. For a movie that has so much on the plate, it all fits on the plate in a very majestic, beautiful way. I love it.
This movie could walk the runway.
It could. This movie is a model with figure. Okay, like the very few are allowed, but when they land, it's great. Price.
I'm going with fit as well, because another thing I want to compliment for is that along with this length, like it could have gone like. I'm not saying it's thin by any means. I'm saying, like, if they wanted to indulge themselves a little bit, it could have gone a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But they didn't, and it's fit for that reason.
This is a movie that could easily indulge itself, too. Like, they're like, why not add a 5th small film into it? Like, let's do more time in limbo. There's so many...
Let's add another dream.
Right, let's... How many dreams?
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie... The fact that it has the restraint that it has for as much as it already does is pretty impressive, I think. And I think that says a lot about its runtime with that. But without further ado, guys, do we want to get in the scores?
Sure.
I want to go last. I don't care what order you guys go in. Price, you can go.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
I'm feeling very confident and good at giving it a 7. I can't give it higher because I don't think the rewatchability for me is there. Because besides the hallway scene, nothing else really engaged me to an amazing extent besides the story. And I very much enjoyed the story, but it's one of those that I'm glad I watched it 7 or 8 years ago. Because everything felt kind of fresh. I kind of knew it was happening, but I like being refreshed on it. And this won't be a movie I watch for another 6, 7, 8 years, something like that. So I have to knock it quite a bit for that because that's when that's where my 8s and 9s and 10s. That's kind of my criteria for 8s and 9s and 10s is rewatchability. Because I do like the movie. Like I said, I liked a lot of things about it, but it's just not rewatchable to me until in the future, which I definitely will because I do enjoy the movie a lot.
Sure.
So, Nathan, you go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of the same kind of qualms that I have with it. For me, rewatchability is what brings a movie up to some of the higher scores.
The upper echelon scores.
Part of that is the idea of the enjoyment of getting to rewatch a movie with somebody that's not seen it before. I enjoy that with movies that I rate really highly, and this isn't really one that I'm oh, I can't wait to share this movie with somebody. Not that it's a bad movie, it's a good movie. For me, I'd probably land at I'd say I'd give it an 8. It's very solid, it's beautiful, it does so much, it does it all very well, all the actors are fantastic. But I watched it once 10 years ago, and I watched it today, and I probably won't watch it for who knows how long after that.
On that point, there's always going to be movies where it's like Gravity. If you've ever seen that movie, it's a space movie.
Great movie. Haven't gone back to want to watch it since.
You will not want to rewatch it.
Yeah,
it's just like it. It's beautiful. It's cinematic. It's great, but you'll never revisit it because you know what happens, and there's not much, I guess, that happens in it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Sandra Bullock floats for a while.
Both of them do.
I mean, talking about movies that we consider to just be very beautiful and interesting movies. Blade Runner 2049, I think is a very beautiful movie that I would go back and rewatch more sooner than I would Inception.
That's your cup of tea, though.
Sure.
That'd be if you watch a really pretty animated movie, you'd be that's going to be one that Price is probably going to like.
Right.
If I would see a dystopian world future, it's got Nathan written all over it.
And we even said this in the Blade Runner review, Blade Runner 2049 is a movie built to get Nathan's high score. It's beautiful cinematography.
It's a tank.
Yeah,
it is an absolute unit.
Sci-fi, post-dystopian. It hits all of his checkboxes with that.
If it just had more to do about government.
Yep. If it had more
to do
about
would have gotten that.
Wham!
Wait, we don't know what.
What's this button? What's this button? It's your score.
Shot basic.
Well, so this movie is an 8 for me. The complexity that I was talking about. Whenever I think of movies like this, I think of Interstellar, and Dylan hates when I compare this movie to Interstellar
because Interstellar's terrible.
Actually, I like Interstellar.
Really?
It's not.
It's love, Murph.
It's not.
Love,
listen,
Murph.
I have gripes with it, but for it,
oh dear Lord!
But if you want to hear my thoughts on it, we'll pick it on the show.
It is the deepest movie in the world, and for some reason, I think that movie is what this was to me about 10 years ago. It is something that I've had to watch 2 or 3 times, and I think I'm finally getting around to watching it and getting to know it. This movie is an 8 for me. The cast is great. Again, I watch it every year or two, so I'll have to rewatch it. It's perfectly fine by me. Some of those little fudgy spots that you were talking about that you allow for, I do too. It's just some of that stuff, like you said, pseudoscience is. There's still more to be explained. I just don't want to get hung up on some of that stuff. So that's where I'm at.
So it was 7, 8, right?
Yep. 7, 8, 8.
Yep. Oh, cool. Yeet! That's
For those of you who couldn't hear that, it says it's a 10.
It's a 10! It's all of us just bantering and yelling at a 10. It's not going to go up.
It's not even loud.
It's not. Do I want to hit it again?
You chewing those chips earlier were louder.
Yeah.
movie's a 10. This movie's perfect.
For him.
For me.
Okay.
Listen, I'm not saying for Price, for Nathan, for Mason, for all of you guys, subjectivity is the name of the game. But if Blade Runner 2049 is a movie built for Nathan, this movie is a movie built for me. The cast is some of all my favorite all-time actors with my favorite director, and let's look at the crux on this. Listen, here's the accolades I give to this film. Before Avengers like Infinity War and Endgame, I would say this is the best ensemble film of all time. Like, I look across the board on it and say how many actors bring all their best actors with it. Even if you have problems with Ellen Page, everybody else is charming, perfect, nails their roles. This is a great supporting cast with a good, interesting main characters with it. I love all the cast with this one. This is a great ensemble piece. If you want just a regular heist movie with all the fun stakes and then taking it to a whole nother bizarro dream world level with the psychological stuff, I love all that stuff. That is some of my favorite stuff in this movie. You go in deeper into that. All right, let's say I wanted a love story out of this. It has this great, tragic love story about love and grief built into it as well. The whole thing with him and Maul going through while Maul is this beautiful but dangerous threat throughout the entire time, while he's also managing to process the grief of it, to sit there and go over it. His little speech at the end, I love it whenever he even sits there and says to this imaginary version of his passed away wife, he's just like, you know, listen, I couldn't possibly imagine you with all your complexions and your all of your faults and your things. You're just too perfect. I'm sorry you're not good enough. Like, that line is so powerful in the way, like, the journey that he takes to even get to even say that line, for him to say all that stuff. I love it. I love all the layers. I love all of this one. This one, rewatchability, this is my biggest factor for putting this on my 10 for me, because this is a movie that every time I notice something a little bit more different, a little bit more abstract. I'm with Mason on this one. First time I watched this film, I was just like, I liked it, I think.
Yeah.
I was like, that was a lot of
Kind of
movie.
like coming out of Midsummer.
Yeah, I was like, that was a lot of movie for me to process.
Throw that name around right now, sir.
So
you're in my shit books right now because of that movie.
Midsummer. So it's a movie that I was like, I think I like it. I don't think I really get it. I'm like, I think I got it. I need to rewatch that again.
Yeah.
And I went back and watched it again. And I'm like, oh, I get it more. And then after I like get the concept, then you start to appreciate it after you finally get it. It's like a wine. You're like, whenever you drink alcohol for the first time, you're like, oh, I don't like the way it tastes. I don't like the way it tastes.
So you keep drinking in the hopes that one day it'll actually be good.
No, I'm like...
kind of like methamphetamine.
Well, right.
Yeah,
but
for
me...
a lot like that.
A lot like that.
But for me, you're right.
It's also a little bit of maybe that sunken cost fallacy where you...
Well, I want it because I bought it. Yeah, listen, absolutely. There's a lot of that to it, but for this movie has all the things I want out of a movie, and it does something so incredibly ambitious, especially for its time, and nails it. Absolutely crushes it. Ambitious ending, or ambiguous ending rather. You don't even know how it ends. It leaves it up to your own, like, what do you think on that? I love that it ends that way. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's a perfectly fit movie. This movie is immaculate to me. It hits all the boxes I want out of a movie with it. This is a 10 out of 10 movie for me.
What would you have done if one of us had called it a 10 and smacked that button?
I would have been pumped, honestly. I've been like, yes!
Oh, man, I didn't think about that.
Should have got me from 10 years ago.
Sorry.
Right here with you.
Nah.
You would have chucked him out the door, but...
I thought about it just for the fun of it. Just be like,
hit the button so hard it breaks, and like he never even got to touch the button.
I would just get a champagne bottle and pop it and spray everybody with it, man. Oh, man.
With all that praise having been showered on Leonardo DiCaprio, I think it's time that the month continues.
Yes.
It is the DiCaprio month, and it is now Mason's turn to pick the next DiCaprio movie.
So I was pretty hell-bent on picking Shutter Island.
You just step it out. I didn't know it did that. All right.
The problem with Shutter Island is a lot of the appeal is like the very ending, and if everyone's seen it here, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
If you already know the ending, it's kind of a flat film. You know, it's just, I don't know. So I vetoed that idea. I'm gonna go with The Great Gatsby. Some of us have seen it. I don't know.
I've not seen it. So
it's been a long time though.
Same. I've only seen it once.
I'm pretty happy to finally get around to watching this movie.
Yeah, this is a movie that I feel like I should have watched for a long
here?
time.
No, I've seen it.
You've seen
You
it.
said it once.
Yeah.
How long ago?
When it first came out.
So you don't even...
Listen, I know.
All the more reason for him to pick
I
it.
know what this movie contains, and I could write it down right now, and I know we're gonna talk about it.
There's a lot of parties, and I know there's that
It
gif
sounds
of-
like boobs.
Okay.
It sounds like boobs. Is it boobs?
Is it boobs?
Soundtrack for one, and visuals were the two things that I was thinking.
Okay.
of.
If you're going to
Sounds like
soundtrack and
boobs.
visuals, then you're...
This guy.
I'm telling you,
I know costumes are real big in it too, Nate.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
costume design is big.
No comment on politics.
That is my movie pick for next week.
So tune in next week for The Great Gatsby on Leo January. Here, starting out on our 2020 podcast.
January?
Jan Caprio? Jan Caprio. Yeah, we're gonna go with that.
Okay.
Boo! Jan Caprio sucks. All right. Anyway, guys, where can they? I'm not gonna do your plugs. You can catch me at the award-winning podcast over at Call to Action Podcast. We cover all the great Schmodown content. If you don't know what Schmodown is, check it out. Just type in movie trivia Schmodown into the show, and you can check it out more. Guys, any other plugs you want to do before we wrap up on today's episode?
We're good.
Good.
Got a whole lot of nothing.
All right, guys. Well, I'll see you next week on The Great Gatsby. See you then.
Bye.
Also, we're not centered on the dogs.
Oh no.
Well, let's reshoot it all over, guys.
Not too far.
Starting over.
No, Dylan's gonna talk.
I'll do it again.
I had to call you out on the cast before anything else. I knew that you were gonna sit there and say,
Bro,
"This is my favorite.
You're right.
This is my favorite.
You're right. But you know, tell me I'm wrong. This movie
No,
was
you're
built for
right.
me. This
You're
movie is
right.
built to be a good 10 for Dylan. They're like, some guy named Dylan Camacho is gonna love this flick. Like,
Christopher Nolan himself
Yeah.
said that.
I believe it. He knows me by name.
Yeah.
I sent him lots of letters.